When I was 3 years old, it was around Christmas time. My mom was putting up the Christmas tree. She had all the sparkly Christmas bulbs and handmade Christmas ornaments, and she would put them all over the tree. So I guess it didn't really occur to her that since I was so small and I was like crawling and shit at that time, that if she put Christmas bulbs on like the bottom of the tree, like the rim of the tree, I could easily like take them. So I took one off and I looked at it. I was like, So I ate the Christmas bulb, the whole fucking thing, except for the little hook, that you hook it onto the tree. So I ingested the Christmas bulb. Anyway, so a few days later, it came out in my shit. Yeah, it was a red Christmas bulb, and my mom said that my shit was sparkly, just like my personality. So I was really into Legos. I would build fucking anything. I'd build houses. I used to like get little Hot Wheels and fucking like make houses for the Hot Wheels and play family and shit. So anyways, with the Legos, like, how they used to have little men and like their hands would be like little hooks, kind of, so they'd look like this, So I decided that I was going to take one of these fucking hands and shove it up my nose. Like, you could see like a bulge in my nose from where it was. And I tried like pulling it out. My dad tried getting like tweezers and pulling it out and everything. We literally had to go to the doctor, not surgically, because it wasn't surgery, but like they had to like get special like little pliers or whatever the fuck, tweezers, and like they had to go into my nose and pull it out. Out came tons of blood. My nose was bleeding for like a good hour because of all of it. And I even got to keep the little Lego. It's in a little bag. It's probably thrown away now, but I got to keep the Lego. So needless to say, my mom threw away all the Legos. So when I was about like 5 or 6 years old, I was really into Food Network and cooking, and two chefs in particular, Rachel Ray and Chef Emerald Orgassi, or however you say his last name. Anyway, so I was pretending I was him. I went into the cupboards and I poured out all the bowls, all the Tupperware containers, lids, spoons, knives, like little spatulas, and the dreaded food processor. I'm walking around my kitchen and I accidentally fumble over on a bowl and my foot, bam, right into the food processor. Like baby toe is like hanging on, I don't know what the proper word is, like by a few like ligaments or whatever the fuck. It's literally like dangling. And I remember the whole ride to the ambulance, I was thinking, Jesus, I fucked up.
This one time, I was actually dating this guy named John, and on New Year's, I decided to break up with him. Well, we had a huge crowd that night. New Year's is always really big for us in Memphis. So having him show up in the crowd doing my performance was kind of strange because we broke up and he was kind of crazy, so I was kind of like a little bit nervous about him being in the audience. And when I finally made it on stage, he got up and walked over to the stage, and he started like kind of like pumping his fist like that in his hand, like, and then pointed at me going like, I'm gonna fuck you up. And then here comes the countdown. And he comes up on the stage with all of us, and he stands next to me. He goes, I want a kiss. He's got a knife in his hand, and he is looking at me. I'm freaking out, and luckily one of my best friends was right there, and they kind of like jacked him up a little bit and took him out. And that's one of my crazy stalker stories. So I went to Florida a long time ago. I moved to Florida to take this job, and it was Fort Myers, Florida, to be a house mom, and all the people were pretty pretty mean to me when I first got there. It kind of made me homesick a little bit. After that, there was like tons of hurricanes and hurricanes after hurricanes. So the club decided to close down because of all the water damage. So I was out for like 3 months without work, just sitting there depressed, sad, and I decided to just pack up all my stuff one night and move it right back to Tennessee. And it's probably one of my biggest regrets is leaving and coming back to Memphis. Okay, so my story starts off with me at the club doing a performance on a Saturday night, packed house full of hot guys just roaming around. I jump off the stage and my hair flies right off my head. And not only that, it takes me a second to find it. So I'm like kind of searching around the crowd looking for my wig, and it's just pretty much lost in the crowd. So it takes me like 15 minutes to even find it before somebody's like, here it is, DeMonica. So I run off, extremely embarrassed. So from now, now I just kind of make sure it's on if I have a wig. If I'm not having a weave or something, I'm pinning that shit.
So when I was 5, I lived in Ecuador, and we had this maid named Gladys, because it was common for middle-class families in a third world country to have maids, and she loved me better than she loved my parents. So she would follow all of my orders, and I would be the highest priority, and she called me Señor Genki, and I felt like a king, and I was the most spoiled brat ever. One day, she would always make soup for me when I asked for soup, even though my parents asked for, spaghetti. So, that is an example of how I had a maid who loved me more than she loved my parents. And when I was supposed to eat a corn on the cob one day, and of course I didn't want to eat it because I'm a little kid, and little kids don't like healthy things. And there was this really tempting grape popsicle in the freezer, so I wanted to eat it. And my mom said I could eat it after I finished the corn on the cob. So I just ate it, and I figured I would go to her and tell her I ate the corn on the cob, because why not? Why not lie? But then she went to the kitchen and she saw the corn on the cob right on the table, uneaten completely. So she got mad at me. She locked me in the closet, or that's how I remember it. Anyway, apparently I was stuck in a bedroom with something behind me, but it was completely darkness behind me, if I remember correctly, and it was very traumatic. I was crying and banging on the door and being like, Mom, let me out of this closet because I deserve this grape popsicle, and I'm sorry I didn't eat the corn on the cob. So one day I was in Disney World, right? In Japanese, Tokyo Disneyland. And I was wearing a little Stitch hat. I was really happy that I got it. I bought it at the Disneyland, and I was with my friends from America, 20 of them, and we were on a tour going through 5 different cities in Japan, and I was all really happy because this was something I wanted to do my entire life. Go on a tour with my friends from America to Japan and show them how awesome of a country it is. And they were all impressed as heck. I really wanted to take a picture with one of those characters in the little costumes, like Piglet, or the Chipmunks, or the Eeyore, or Winnie the Pooh. So I found Piglet at the park, and I chased after him. I was like, yes, I need Piglet. So I talked to my friend. I was like, should I run after that person in that costume right there? I feel like I would scare them. And they said, why not, We're Americans. We go after the things we want, even though Japanese people don't like being attacked. So I went after that Piglet. I tackled him. I tackled Piglet. I didn't mean to tackle him so hard, but he ended up falling, and I felt really, really bad. But that is how I ended up taking my first picture with Piglet at Tokyo Disneyland. Okay, this is the story of #WeaveCrew. So I went to a performing arts high school, and we were full of crazy, extroverted people, and I'm sure half of the guys were basically gay. So we one day were on a pretty relaxing day. We didn't have much classes to do, and so we decided, I think this was after a rehearsal or something, and we decided to wear some weave. One of my friends brought a whole bunch of colored weaves, and we put them on our heads. Luke got a pink weave, Isabel got a purple one, I got an orange one, Alyssa got a gold one, Austin got a blue one, Wesley got a blue and white one. I don't know why he got two as opposed to us. He must have been the weave queen or something. So we just walked around and strutted around downtown Norfolk, Virginia with our little weaves on our heads. And it was fabulous. I was one of the quieter kids. They were all like dancing up on the poles and just catwalking on the sidewalks. And I was just, okay guys, I'm just walking normally because I'm a normal kid right here. So yes, I still have that weave in my closet, and my sister found it the other day, and she sent me a Snapchat, and she was like, why is there an orange weave in your closet? Are you cross-dressing? What is it? I don't know. But yes, that is the story of #weave group.
So, when Julie and I lived in our first apartment in Pennsylvania, we, lived in this, it's like a house type thing, but it was made up of little apartments. We lived with this girl, and was my friend at the time. We lived atop this guy, and he was probably the weirdest guy we've ever lived near. And if you walked slightly above a tiptoe, he would blast AC/DC ridiculously. AC/DC and classic rock like The Who. So we're walking, and I guess it was not acceptable the way we were walking around this house. And he started blasting Baba O'Reilly. And that was a really weird song choice. Whatever. So we hear him start blasting music. We're like, okay, well, it's another day of just this. And he goes outside the door and just goes to a bar. Leaves his house with blaring music, leaves it. We then decide, my roommate, she worked mornings, she decided, hey, we're gonna call the cops on this guy. And I don't know why, but she did, and she called the cops, and they pounded on the door, they're like, well, he's not answering the door. Called the landlord, got permission to go inside the house, and they're like, oh, he's not home. They turned down the music for us, and I'm pretty sure that was the last time we had an issue with the guy. When I was in college, we went on this wild, wild adventure, and we went hiking on a mountain, and at the top of this mountain was supposed to be this, party place, supposedly, that people would go at my school, because I went to this really traditional school. So we went to this party place, and there was, absolutely no one there. It was really weird, and we're like, well, what happened? So we were climbing up this mountain, and it wasn't really a mountain, it was a hill, but it was steep. But I lived in Kentucky, so that was understandable. So we went up the mountain and ran into this raccoon. And it was so, I don't know. So this raccoon is, following us and wanting us. And I'm like, it's going to attack us. We're going to die. I don't want to die right now. So we finally find a way to get away from the raccoon. It doesn't follow us anymore. I don't know why it stopped following us. And then it turns out it was just a cat the whole time. We thought it was a raccoon, we did, and we're like, why is it not attacking? Why is it not attacking? And it turned out to be a cat the entire time. Followed us for probably a good, 30 minutes on this hike. So, I don't know why we thought it was a raccoon. It was weird. It was, I don't know. When I was 14, we lived in this house in Florida that was in this neighborhood, and of course it was, but we had these really trashy neighbors that lived next door. So they would constantly have an RV up front. They would have trash. They had people in and out of it all the time, and they would put things outside, food and stuff. So one day, this is what happened about like 1 a.m. A guy came over. They used to live there because they had people in and out, like I said, and he was frustrated or angry or whatever, I don't know, and the one guy was drunk. So the one guy, he was about 30 maybe, I don't know, but he pulls out a machete, hits the guy in the back of in the head, like, and the guy had a cut on his head and a fractured skull, and he went to the hospital. The other guy went to jail. The best part of the story is there was a huge blood spot on the door that was there for 3 months afterwards, and they finally then painted the door pink.
iSurvivor, 2 truths and 1 lie. Statement 1. In 7th grade, I was rollerblading, and I fell and broke my arm in 2 different spots. My mother made me wait a full 24 hours before agreeing to take me to the emergency room in the hospital because she didn't believe it was truly broken. So I had to wait 24 hours, not being able to move my arm whatsoever, before she finally agreed to take me and get checked in. It was a fun day in 7th grade. iSurvivor, 2 truths, 1 lie. Statement 2. When I was younger, I should say, I was really depressed, and I went to a hospital to get cured. At this hospital, I met my first girlfriend named Natasha. We ended up seeing each other for a little bit inside the hospital without them really knowing. That was quite an experience we had, but it was definitely an interesting relationship that didn't work out come release of the hospital. To this day, I haven't seen her, or heard from her, or seen how she's doing, but I sometimes wonder how it would have been if we had stayed in touch. iSurvivor, 2 truths and 1 lie. Statement 3. I am a firm believer in God, and I think everything that He says will come true. I don't believe in your own fate, making your own choices. I think that we've already set up a path. He has set up a path for us, and we will be led down that road. We don't have control over our lives. It's just a predetermined line. And I think that everything does not happen for a reason. It has already been written out for us.
I was kissed by a Survivor player. His name is Shannon Elkins, and he was on Survivor Nicaragua. He was an early boot. It was back in Texas about 6 years ago. He was at the House of Blues. We were singing and hanging out, and it was a good experience. He was the only Survivor player that's ever kissed me, and it definitely was an interesting experience. We were both drinking and having a good time. There was a lot of people there that were able to see the kiss, and they can verify that can be a true statement. And when I was about in 7th or 8th grade, I had went to Hawaii with my mom and brother, and we were exploring the beach and the island where Honolulu was. We went to the other side of the island and looked at some water over there, and some of the fish, and we came back on a bus. And when I came back on the bus with my mom and my brother, they left me on the bus. I was by myself on the bus, and they ended up leaving me. My mom had to get the bus to stop in order to get me off the bus. But my mom did forget me on the bus when we were in Hawaii, when I was in eighth or seventh grade. It was a tragic experience, and it's true. When I was in high school, I ended up raising my hand to try to go to the bathroom, and my teacher, who my U.S. history teacher, would not allow me to go to the bathroom. So I ended up actually pissing my pants. When I did piss my pants, it was sixth period, so I had to try to figure out how I was going to get home, because I had to go on the bus, and ended up wrapping my books on the front side, and I got to my locker, and I got to the bus, and I ended up being able to hide it, my piss pants, because it was all in front, and no one, I don't believe anyone ever knew, and this is the truth.
Here's story number 1. As many of you know, I'm a private chef, so I get to work with a lot of really cool people and sometimes celebrities. So one of the people I was contracted to work with a few years ago, they had told me that they were going to have a dinner party, and that my non-disclosure contract that I had signed prior would really come into effect for this dinner party. So of course I was really excited and anxious to find out more about it. So the next day I'm at their house, and they're getting ready for people to arrive, all by vote, of course, and a little while later I'm seeing Sharon Stone, I'm seeing Cindy Crawford, but the most surprising was all of a sudden I turn around and George Clooney was in my kitchen. And so after I got to say hello to him and found out that him and his then girlfriend were their neighbors in Italy, he was actually more interested in the cooking and sat down across the big kitchen island from me and talked to me for at least 45 minutes. And I was preparing a hot sauce for the steaks I was cooking, and I was making them with Scotch bonnet peppers, which are hot peppers. And all of a sudden George Clooney was putting on gloves and asking to help make this sauce for the steaks. And I the whole time had to try and be cool and not freak out, and I don't know if I did a great job, but I couldn't talk about it for a year. Story number 2. When I was a little kid, I live in a small town, I was a bit of a local celebrity. Not only did I have red hair, my maiden name was Train, but there was a local water company, a well drilling company, that used to have ads and commercials on the radio station and local TV station, rather kitschy little jingle. And one day, I was about 6 or 7 years old, they were at my grandparents' house, and so immediately when I saw their truck, being the smart-ass little kid that I was, I started yelling, "No water, no pay," with Betray. And the owner kind of thought that was cool, and the next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, you gotta be in one of our commercials." And of course I thought that was really cool. And in about I would say about 3 months from then, I was sitting on top of a big well drilling truck, singing "No water, no pay" with Betray. and I was on their commercials on the TV, and my voice was the little jingle on the radio, and for the longest time I was known as the Betray well drilling girl. Story number 3. So in high school, I'd had a number of boyfriends, but one of my most serious ones happened to be Native, and he happened to have a second home on the reservation. So I was always avoiding going to his house, and he was starting to get a little annoyed, but I couldn't tell him the real reason. It had nothing to do with not wanting to be alone with him or anything like that. It's because when I grew up, and you have to remember I grew up in a very small town, and there was a lot of racism. When I was growing up, I was told that if I went over the bridge to the local reservation, that I would get scalped. And I was told this by many adults when I was young. So it had always stuck in my head, and I'd never been over the bridge to the reservation. So when I started dating my boyfriend, and he lived on the reservation, I didn't know if this was something that I needed to be worried about, if it was something that was true, but it was also something that I didn't think I could ask him about without pissing him off. So for this first 6 months of our relationship, I wouldn't go near his house, and when I finally did, as you can see, I still have my scalp.
Once upon a time, when I worked at McDonald's, I was taking orders and taking cash because we were understaffed. And I was doing a lot, and it was a lot of multitasking. And, I was switching from lane to lane and just trying to do as much as I can with as many ears and mouths and fingers I could do possible. And I accidentally kind of ignored someone at the window while I was taking their cash because I was doing so much that they started to scream at me at the top of their lungs, like the top of their lungs, and pretty much they yelled at me for a really long time, and I had to stop everything that I was doing to defuse the situation because they were like threatening to throw their money at me, and like it was just such a mess. And like I was just trying to take their order, and then they just kept screaming at me, and they were being unresponsive. And pretty much I closed the window in their face because I didn't take that shit. And I talked to my manager, and I quit because I didn't want to deal with that stuff anymore. And yep, that's pretty much that. During 5th grade, we were doing this poem activity, and pretty much what we did was we'd find a book of poems, and we'd write our name on a sticky note and place it on like the poem that we really liked. Then we'd give the poem book to someone else, and they would do the same thing. But my devious ass was like, what can I do to fucking make someone cry? I found all the kids I didn't like, and I found their sticky note, and I'd write "is stupid" under their sticky note. And so pretty much I would say like, Sandy is stupid. Like if someone read it, obviously. And pretty much I got caught because my handwriting was really distinct. Because it's like not pretty, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I got caught because my handwriting was really distinct. And then my teacher made me apologize in front of the whole class. And it was super embarrassing. And I was like crying. But like I made 2 other people cry. So it was like literally karma hitting like a 5th grader. So yeah, that sucked. During 7th grade, I moved to a new school, and I was the only gay kid at my school. So I had this really obscure voice because I was so gay, and I was just like totally outcast of the school because no one really knew me, and I was just like really fucking homosexual. And during PE, this kid, we were playing indoor kickball and he kicked the ball, and it hit me directly in the fucking face. And it hurt so fucking bad. I remember like tears were like rolling down my face already, and like I didn't want to like cry in front of everyone, but like I kind of want to like show my dominance. And I went up to this kid like holding my fucking fist, and I tried to punch him, and I didn't know how to punch. Like, who the fuck knows how to punch when they're in seventh grade? And I punched him, and he dodged the punch. And since I was like holding in my fist like that, my thumb hit the brick wall, and I like shattered my thumb. And I was like bawling, and it was a fucking mess. So that was a great way to start a new school year.
Another truth, or is it a lie, is the story of when I was living in Bloomington Normal with my sister. Bloomington, it can be kind of it's a rough area, okay? Long time ago, they moved, when they took down the projects of Cabrini Green, they relocated all those people out to Bloomington, Illinois. So it was when I was getting in my car from Kroger. They have Krogers out there. And as I was getting in my car, I sensed, like I heard the back door open, and I'm sensing someone's getting in behind me. And I'm thinking someone's just accidentally got in the wrong car, you know, when you like, oh, it looks like my car. And so I'm thinking it's an accident. So I like go to turn out of the corner of my eye, like, oh my God, fight or flight response. Your whole body is like numb and like vibrating. This guy's wearing a nylons over his face to like push his face back, and he has a gun. He tells me, drive to the closest ATM. So I drive to the closest ATM. He makes me take out the max amount that I can. And this whole time, I'm trying to come up with, like, what can I tell him? And I keep telling him, like, I haven't seen your face. I haven't seen your face. Please let me go. And then he makes me drive to another ATM. He made me drive to 3 total. This was, it felt like a lifetime that this was going on and happening. And after the last one that he had made me go to, he told me to pull into the Taco Bell parking lot. And I have no idea if this gun is loaded or not, but at this point I'm assuming that it was. I have no idea. Hopefully it never was. And he tells me, and I keep repeating to him that I won't tell on you. I haven't seen your face. Please let me go. So he took my wrist to the steering wheel with a zip tie and told me that I had to count to 100 before I could call for help. And then he left me there, and he took off. And I just collapsed on the steering wheel and just collapsed, broke down, and finally, you know, was able to then come back to myself and get help and get someone to come over and cut me down. And I'll just never forget having to tell my mom this story. I'll never forget that, because that's the last kind of story you ever want to tell your mother. And being a mother now myself, I know how horrifying that would have been to hear. Whew. Another story, another truth, or is it a lie, is the story of the horrible car accident that I got into on my way to visit my sister one year, several years back. My friend and I, we were having a great time driving along. We had picked up some energy drinks and some beef jerky, so we're all jacked up. And we got distracted, laughing and talking. And I was supposed to be getting off. I was supposed to be staying to the left. And I was like, the right-hand side started exiting. So I realized, oh, crap, I'm supposed to be over to the left. So I go to get back over into the left, and there was rumble strips. So as we were going so fast that as I went over the rumble strips, the car started sliding because of the texture difference. And I panicked, and I went to go back and go the other way, and it sent our car spinning. And luckily, by the grace of the universe, there was a cement wall. And instead of crashing into that cement wall head on, the spin direction spun us sideways. So my friend's head hit the side of the car, so she had some blood, and her neck was sore. But other than that, she was unscathed. And me, I had a sore ankle because I had been pressing on the brake so hard when we hit the wall. And that was all we came out with. A motorcyclist and a nurse stopped to help us, and we both came out of it okay. Car was completely totaled. It was a rental car, and luckily I had paid for the insurance. I considered not paying for the insurance too, but I decided to get it that time, and thank God. And just an experience in life that makes you realize it can all be over in a moment. My final thoughts were going to be, oh, fuck, I'm going to die. Fuck, I'm going to die. This is how I die. That would have been my final thoughts. But they were not my final thoughts. Thank God for airbags and safety features in compact cars. Like, the bumper was off. We, like, picked it up and stuck it in the back seat. It was madness. My first truth, or is it a lie, video is the story of when I was a junior in high school. So this was back in 1998-99 school year. And that was right after the Columbine incident had happened with the Columbine shootings. And I, at that time, was a goth chick. So, of course, those are the type of people, the trench coat, gothic people that had done the Columbine incident. Well, shortly after it, like about a week after it, a friend and I had the brilliant idea that we would light off a smoke bomb in the hallway to create a fire, everyone to be evacuated, fire alarm to go off. And that was taken very seriously by the school. I was arrested. I was put in a juvenile detention center for 2 weeks, locked up, which, you know, obviously had an effect on me learning to appreciate my freedom and learn that lesson of, like, you can be mischievous. Sometimes you don't take it a little too far. And I then, upon my return, was expelled from school and couldn't go back to that school anymore. So I ended up going down and living with my sister the following school year because I didn't want to attend the outsourced school for bad kids that I did finish the year off of my junior year. I attended my senior year living with my older sister who's 10 years older. And yeah, so I was a bit of a rebel when I was in high school.